You know what's funny? It's not the enemies you see coming that leave scars. Number. Those are easy. You brace for them. You fight back. You survive. But the ones who smile in your face, while twisting the blade behind your back, they leave wounds you can't see, but you feel every damn day. They clap for your wins. While hoping you fall, they say, "I got your back," while aiming straight at your head. And you trusted them, you believed them, you gave them the map to your soul, and they used it to burn you down. You thought they were teammates, thought they'd cover you when the storm hit, but they weren't shooting at the enemy. They were lining up a headshot on you. That's the punchline. You gave them loyalty. They wrapped it up nice and left it bleeding on the floor. People wear masks, not like mine. Mine is honest. Mine screams chaos, but theirs, polished, perfect, fake. They talk like you, laugh like you, bleed like you, until they don't, until they learn your fears, your weaknesses, your dreams, and strike where it hurts most. Because betrayal tastes sweeter when it comes from someone you trusted. It's more satisfying when it comes from someone you loved. And the worst part, it doesn't just break trust. It makes you question yourself. Was I too soft? Was I blind? Was I the fool? Number. You are real. And some people can't stand that. They hate what's real, because real exposes fake. And when you showed up honest, raw, human, they saw a mirror and hated what it showed them. So they broke it, broke you. You gave them your soul's blueprint, and they used it to burn you alive. You handed them the lighter, thinking they'd guard your fire, but they torched everything you loved. Why? Because betrayal tastes better when it comes from a friend. It's deeper, darker, more personal, and when it hits, you're not just broken, you're lost. You start questioning everything, your choices, your strength, your worth. That's the cruelty of it. They don't just steal your trust, they poison your reflection. They make you wonder if it's your fault. Maybe you were too soft, too open, too real. But the truth, you were honest, and they couldn't handle it. People like that. They suffocate around authenticity. They wear masks, and when you show up unmasked, they panic, so they destroy you to protect their lie. Because you were light, and they were shadows, and light exposes everything. Stay sharp. Keep your eyes wide. Don't let sweet words blind you. Watch, not just what they say, but how they move when they think you're not looking. A snake always leaves a trail. If you know where to look, be like the wolf. The wolf never trusts the pack. Blindly, it watches. Silently, it knows. Hunger makes monsters out of friends. And when that hunger hits, it doesn't hesitate. It shows its teeth. You don't need to bark. Just let them know. If they cross you, there will be consequences. You know what really gets me? The way they act concerned, as if they care. They say, just being honest. But there's a flicker, a twisted joy in their eyes. They dress jealousy as advice, wrap envy in concern, smile while hoping you stumble. And you, caught in the chaos, don't see it. They tell you to slow down, to take it easy. But it's not love, it's a trap. They fear your rise because it reminds them They never had the courage to chase their own. They're not helping, they're holding you back. They don't see your journey. They think you're lucky. That pain never touched you. But they didn't see the nights you questioned your own worth. The mornings you rose, powered by nothing but rage and will. They never heard the battles in your head, the doubts clawing like wild animals. They only saw the surface, blind to the flames underneath. So when they smile fake support, just know they're hoping you fall. But here's the truth. Your strength wasn't gifted. It was earned, forged in fire. And that fire still burns. Let them twist the story. Let them paint themselves as heroes. You don't owe them clarity. Not your story, not your truth, not even a sentence. Let them stew while you build. Let them whisper while you rise. Because they're still trapped, spinning in cycles they never escaped. But you didn't just leave. You lit the cage on fire, watched it burn, and never looked back. They never had the guts, so now they watch from behind the glass, wishing they had your resilience. But wishing won't rebuild what they destroyed. You will. They don't just envy your success. They envy your scars. They hate that you took every blow and stayed standing. They prayed your wounds would break you, turn you bitter, make you small. But you stitched yourself together with nothing but fury and a heart too stubborn to die. They can't understand it. It haunts them because in their world, pain ends the story. But in yours, pain forged the warrior. They call it coldness, but it's survival. You didn't fold, you evolved. You didn't just walk out. You burned the cage behind you. Be cautious. Remember how fast they vanished when you were bleeding in the mud. It's not about grudges, it's strategy. You can forgive, but don't forget. Be civil, but not blind. They haven't changed. They're just reacting to your rise. Now they want access to the strength they once mocked. They'll say, I always believed in you. Number, you remember the silence, the laughs, the doubt. Let them watch. Let them spin their stories. But your truth, it's not theirs to rewrite. You don't owe them a single step forward. People without courage mock those who dare. They tear you down because your ambition reflects their fear. You don't need their applause. You don't need their nod. You're not living for spectators. Why care what cowards think? They sit in the stands, watching you bleed while calling it foolish. But you know the rules of your war. You know the cost, and you never stopped swinging. You're not here for recognition. You're here because you swore you'd never die in that dark place. You didn't just survive the fire. You became it. Let them talk. Let them judge. Let them wonder why your silence is louder than their noise. That's the power. You don't owe proof. You owe yourself a promise to never be broken again. They thought they'd watch you fall. Instead, they'll live their lives watching you conquer. Stay sharp, stay relentless, because in a world of snakes, you learned how to survive the venom. They envy your pain. They fear your rise. You didn't just evolve. You became untouchable. Not because you're heartless, but because you finally learned who's worth the fight and who isn't. They never saw it. The days when you sat in silence, not because you were weak, but because you were rebuilding. They missed the quiet mornings where your only victory was dragging yourself out of bed with a heart made of glass and lungs filled with concrete. They weren't there when the mirror became your enemy, and your own thoughts felt like hands around your throat. They didn't hear the battles that happened behind your eyes, the ones with no blood but left you breathless, because some wars are quiet. Some pain doesn't scream, it just sits there, burning behind the ribs. And still, you got up every damn day. You rose, not for applause, but because the fire inside you refused to die. You rebuilt, not with cheering crowds, but in complete silence. No cameras, no pity, no savior. You stitched yourself back together with nothing but sheer defiance. You were your own rescue, your own salvation, your own damn miracle. And now, they look at you, confused by your strength, shocked by your calm, rattled by your silence. But they weren't there. They didn't carry the weight. They didn't bleed for this peace, so they don't get a say. Let them whisper. Let them guess. Let them create stories to explain what they'll never understand. You didn't ask for understanding. You demanded survival. And in the absence of love, you chose power, loyalty. It's not a game of convenience. It's not a favor you offer, only when it's easy. But that's what they did, didn't they? They stood beside you. Only when the sun was out. Only when your hands weren't bleeding. Only when your chaos didn't inconvenience their comfort. They called it friendship. They called it support. But the second the storm hit, they vanished. No texts, no calls, no hand to pull you from the dirt. Because their loyalty had terms, conditions, limits. It was never about you. It was about them, their image, their timeline, their comfort. And when things got ugly, when you needed someone the most, they got quiet. They chose distance. They chose silence. But you remember. Oh, you remember it all. You remember the promises, the declarations. I'm always here. Lies, dressed in sincerity. Now they return, smiling, pretending, acting like they never left. But loyalty is tested in chaos, not calm, and they failed. They want back in, but they never earned the right to return. You don't hate them, you've just learned. Loyalty is not about presence in the spotlight. It's about showing up when the world goes dark. You were left alone in that dark, and you survived it. So now, you protect your circle. You guard your peace. You watch more than you speak. Because loyalty isn't a word you throw around. It's a scar you carry. And some people aren't worth bleeding for twice. They broke you once. Once was enough. You gave them access. You gave them your raw, open heart. And they shattered it like it meant nothing. But here's the thing. You don't break twice from the same storm. Once you survive the fire, you don't fear the smoke. They think you're the same. Still soft, still reachable. But they don't realize you're not rebuilt. You're reforged. Steel where the scars used to be. Silence where the screams used to live. You don't let people in easily now. Not because you're cold, but because warmth once cost you everything. You've learned. Not all smiles are safe. Not every embrace is shelter. Not every hand that reaches is meant to lift you. Some pull you under. So now you move carefully, quietly, guarded. You don't announce your steps. You calculate them. You don't show your pain. You weaponize it. Because once you've been destroyed, you stop asking for understanding. You stop begging to be seen. You build walls, not to keep love out, but to keep poison from creeping back in. They'll say you've changed, that you're distant, that you're detached. But the truth, you're just done handing out swords to people who only know how to stab. You gave them your trust once. They buried it. Now you give them distance, and they call it cruel. Let them. You don't break twice, not anymore. They broke you once. Once was enough. You gave them access. You gave them your raw, open heart. And they shattered it like it meant nothing. But here's the thing. You don't break twice from the same storm. Once you survive the fire, you don't fear the smoke. They think you're the same. Still soft, still reachable. But they don't realize. You're not rebuilt. You're reforged. Steel where the scars used to be. Silence where the screams used to live. You don't let people in easily now. Not because you're cold, but because warmth once cost you everything. You've learned. Not all smiles are safe. Not every embrace is shelter. Not every hand that reaches is meant to lift you. Some pull you under. So now you move carefully, quietly, guarded. You don't announce your steps. You calculate them. You don't show your pain. You weaponize it. Because once you've been destroyed, you stop asking for understanding. You stop begging to be seen. You build walls, not to keep love out, but to keep poison from creeping back in. They'll say you've changed, that you're distant, that you're detached. But the truth, you're just done handing out swords to people who only know how to stab. You gave them your trust once. They buried it. Now you give them distance. And they call it cruel. Let them. You don't break twice, not anymore. Now they come back with stories, with smiles, with rewritten history. They say, I always knew you had it in you. I told everyone you'd make it. Lie after lie, polished like medals they never earned. They want to be written into your story, as if they never doubted, never disappeared. But you remember. You remember the silence when you needed a voice, the mockery when you dared to dream, the absence when you were drowning. Now that you've surfaced, they act like they threw you the rope. Let them pretend. Let them live in the fiction they've built. It makes them feel better. But you don't need their validation. You don't need their guilt. You don't need their approval to keep building what they tried to destroy. Don't waste energy correcting them. Don't argue. Don't explain. Just keep rising. Because the truth doesn't need witnesses. It leaves evidence in your scars, in your strength, in your silence. Let them walk around, telling people they were part of your journey. While deep down, they know they were just another obstacle you had to survive. You don't hate them, you outgrew them. And outgrowing someone is the kind of revenge you never have to speak aloud. Just keep walking. Let them chase the light they once tried to dim. Not everyone deserves a seat near your fire. Some people only come close to throw water when it's burning brightest. So protect your space, not out of fear, but out of respect for yourself, for your peace, for the empire you've built in silence. You spent too long healing to let someone walk in with muddy feet and call it love. They don't get access just because they apologize, just because they miss the warmth they once tried to extinguish. You're not a revolving door. You're not a second chance. You're a fortress now, with gates, with walls, with watchtowers built from every betrayal you endured. Let them call you distant. Let them say you've changed. You have. That was the goal. You're not bitter. You're careful. You're not cold. You're clear. Because when you give too freely, they take your energy like it's disposable. They don't see the cost, the toll it took to rebuild what they carelessly broke. So now, you move different. You speak less. You choose who gets access. Not everyone can go with you where you're headed. Not everyone should. Let them gossip. Let them judge. You didn't survive this long to let weak minds pollute your clarity. This peace, you earned it. This silence, you bled for it. So protect it. With steel, with fire, with everything you've got. Because peace isn't the absence of noise. It's the absence of nonsense. They called you cold, unfeeling, detached, but they forgot. You weren't always this way. There was a time when your heart was wide open, when you gave freely, loved without guards, believed without hesitation, and they crushed that version of you. They took your softness and twisted it, used it, mocked it. So you adapted. You didn't turn numb. You turned calculated. You didn't lose emotion. You weaponized it. Because when kindness gets punished, it turns into something sharper. They didn't like your boundaries. They didn't like your silence. They didn't like that their games no longer worked on you. So they called it coldness. But this isn't cold. It's control. This isn't distance. It's defense. They wanted access, not accountability. They wanted forgiveness without change. You chose discipline over drama, solitude over fake support, focus over chaos. And they hate it. Because now, they can't reach you. Their tactics bounce off you. Their gossip doesn't move you. Their presence doesn't matter. You didn't become bitter. You became bulletproof. Now they whisper, "You've changed. Good." That means the pain wasn't wasted. They can keep their labels, their opinions, their narratives. You'll keep your edge, your silence, your steel spine, because the old you would have broken for them. This version bends for no one. They'll clap for you, but only if you stay below them. They'll cheer your progress, until it threatens their illusion of control. The second your wings spread farther than theirs, the applause turns into silence, then into whispers, then into knives. They wanted you to rise, but not above them. They wanted you to win, but only if they could still look down at you from their comfort zones. They dressed their envy in advice. Don't go too fast. Be realistic. Stay humble. But what they really mean is, stay small enough to not scare me. They don't want you to fail. They want you to stall. Because if you rise too high, they'll have to face the truth. That they gave up. That they settled. that they never had the courage to chase what you're chasing. And nothing haunts a complacent soul like watching someone else escape the cage they convinced themselves was permanent. You remind them of what they could have been, so they resent you behind forced smiles, behind hollow praise. They want to support you until your fire burns brighter than theirs. But you didn't come this far to dim your light so they could feel safe in the shadows. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them feel the heat of your climb. You're not rising to spite them. You're rising because you refuse to rot in place. Their comfort is not your responsibility. Their fear is not your burden. So keep rising, even if it blinds them. Your ambition, it doesn't scare them because it's big. It scares them because it reflects everything they're not. You walk in with vision, and suddenly their excuses feel hollow. Their comfort feels like chains. Their silence feels like surrender. They don't hate you. They hate how you expose them. Without saying a word, you became a mirror they can't stand to look into. Because when they see you, they're forced to face what they could have been, what they should have chased, what they never had the spine to become. So they call you obsessed, too intense, too serious. They label your focus as arrogance, your hunger as ego. But deep down, they wish they had it. They wish they could wake up with purpose burning behind their eyes, but they don't. So instead, they tear yours apart. They poke holes in your dreams because they never protected theirs. They mock your grind because they've been sleeping for years, and they'll never admit it. But your success tastes like failure in their mouths. Let them choke on it. Let them call you whatever they need to sleep at night. But you stop explaining. You stop shrinking. You aren't made to blend in. You were built to make noise. So let your reflection keep haunting them. You didn't come this far to dim your light for people still hiding in the dark. Let them flinch. Let them turn away. You're not changing the mirror. You're just done apologizing for what it shows. You didn't just escape. You burned the damn cage. Steel by steel, bar by bar. Everything they used to trap you. Now ash beneath your feet. You see, they thought you'd stay. That the fear would hold you. That the guilt would chain you. But they underestimated one thing. You were never waiting for rescue. You were building your wings in secret. And when the time came, you didn't ask for permission. You didn't look back. You rose. Wings cut from pain, feathers dipped in fury. You took flight while they stood there watching, still clutching the keys to a prison that no longer existed. And now, they're bitter, not because you left, but because you proved the door was never locked. You proved that survival isn't escape, it's evolution. You didn't just leave that version of you behind. You cremated it. The people who once held power now hold nothing but regret. They whisper, "Who does he think he is?" But you don't answer, because you're too high now, too focused, too far gone. Their voices don't reach this altitude. Let them choke on the smoke of the fire you lit. You don't owe them an explanation. You don't owe them a return. You gave them enough when you stayed silent, when you stayed small. But now, You don't fit in cages. You were built for skies they were never meant to see. Let them stay grounded. You were born to fly. Let them whisper. Let them talk. Let them write their little stories in rooms you'll never enter. Because while they're busy speaking your name, you're building something they'll never touch. They don't whisper because you failed. They whisper because you didn't. Because you got up. Because you rose without asking. Because you didn't stay broken long enough to make them feel better about their own ruin. You're a reminder that it's possible, and that alone terrifies them. So they make noise. They throw shade in the dark, thinking it'll dim your light. But you don't flinch, because you've heard worse from yourself. You've been your own enemy. You've battled voices that sounded like your own telling you to quit. So they're whispers, child's play. You don't rise to be praised. You rise because the ground never fed you. You rise because rock bottom became a foundation. Let them keep talking. It means you're moving. It means you're growing. It means your presence still echoes in rooms you left behind. They speak of you because they can't become you. Let that be enough. You don't owe the world noise. You don't need to clap back, because silence, when worn with power, screams louder than any applause. So keep going, keep rising. While they whisper, you build. While they guess, you conquer. And one day they'll realize whispers were never enough to stop a storm. They say you've changed. Good. You were supposed to. But what they really mean is, you stopped shrinking to make them feel tall. You stopped softening your voice so they wouldn't feel threatened. You stopped walking in circles just so they wouldn't feel left behind. And now, you make them uncomfortable. Not because you're cruel, but because you've grown beyond the box. They tried to keep you in. You see, people don't mind your growth, as long as it doesn't challenge their stillness. As long as you stay quiet, predictable, manageable. But evolution isn't polite. It breaks things. It burns bridges. It turns "I'm proud of you" into "you've changed." And you have. Because staying the same would have been death in disguise. You didn't claw your way out of darkness just to keep others warm with the fire that almost killed you. You don't exist to be digestible. You're not here to fit inside anyone's comfort zone. Let them feel what they need to feel. Let them talk. Let them sit in the discomfort of watching you become what they never had the courage to face in themselves. You're not sorry for growing. You're not sorry for evolving, because every version of you that kept others comfortable nearly destroyed you. You've earned this form, this focus, this fire. It's not yours to dim, so don't. They think you've peaked. They think you're done. But you're not done. You're just sharpening. Because real warriors don't stop when they win. They stop when they're unrecognizable from who they once were. You didn't come this far to pause, to coast, to settle. You came to evolve, to hunt the next challenge, to become so sharp. Even silence cuts when you walk into a room. You're not addicted to progress. You're built from it. You don't chase the crown. You forge your own. Every scar you carry isn't just a reminder. It's a warning. You didn't just survive. You recalibrated, you refined, you removed every ounce of weakness until all that was left was steel and still. You keep sharpening because the world doesn't care how many battles you've won. Only if you're still standing when the next one comes. So don't relax, don't explain, don't look back. They'll say you're obsessed, that you never stop, that you never rest. They're right, because rest is earned, not owed, and your hunger still outpaces your comfort. You don't want applause, you want results. You want fire in your lungs and silence in your mind. You're not running anymore, you're preparing. Every step forward isn't for approval, it's for domination. And when they wonder how you keep going, tell them you're not done. You're just sharpening the blade. You were never weak, you were just quiet. And they mistook that silence for surrender. You let them speak, you let them doubt, you let them mock. And while they whispered, you sharpened, in silence, in darkness, without their permission, without their applause. They thought you'd stay broken. They thought you'd disappear. They thought their betrayal would bury you for good. But they didn't know. You don't bury fire. You don't silence storms. You just delay the eruption. And now, they're watching the person they said would never rise, burn brighter than they ever imagined. And they regret it. Every doubt, every smirk, every dismissal. They regret not seeing the weapon they were building with their words. Because you didn't just return. You returned sharper, stronger, colder, and you've learned you don't need revenge, just results. You don't need to fight every battle, just win the war. And you will, not with noise, but with precision, not with anger, but with power they can't comprehend. You'll haunt their silence, you'll burn in their memory, because the one they doubted became the one they can't ignore. So stay sharp, not just to defend, but to destroy anything that dares to pull you backward. Stay sharp, because comfort dulls you, and you weren't born to be soft. Stay sharp, because the world forgot what you're made of. And now, they'll remember every scar, every cut, every cold glance that says, I don't forget, and I never fold. You were forged in betrayal, built in fire, and now you are the blade.